Hey guys, it's a little after 10 in the morning of the 25th. Y'all are gonna watch me work while I explain some things about my first video. I did my first video and realized that there was like no context, no history. So yeah, I'm gonna work on my rug. I'm gonna do some background, tell you about a change I made today. If you didn't see my other video, my name is Christina. I'm 60. I'll be 61 in April. I am documenting my self-tapering off of psychiatric medications that I no longer need. I'm currently in protracted withdrawal, which I've been in since May. It took a while to figure out which medication it is because I'm on 4 psych meds. Yep, 4. I've been trying to come down off of them for approximately 2 years. I have finally gotten 3 of the 4 down, and I've reached a point where I can no longer make big cuts. First, I should say that trigger warning, there will be talk about drug abuse, might occasionally see smoke slip across the screen. I'm a cigarette smoker. Let's do some history. So, growing up, my mom was with an abusive boyfriend when I was 10 and 11. He abused her. He didn't abuse us children until I turned about 11. And there was one incident, actually there was 2 incidents that I remember. There were some things that happened that I remembered, but I didn't know what they were. My mother recognized it. I, of course, was 11. I didn't know. So anyway, she was with this abusive man. My grandparents came and got me and my brother. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. I have 3 younger brothers. So me and the oldest boy went up north. I'm in Michigan, so if you're from Michigan, you'll understand that too. My mom sent us up north. At the time, I didn't know she had sent us. We went up north with my grandparents often and stayed in the cabin. And when I say cabin, I'm talking this cabin had an outhouse. My grandpa and I walked to the fresh spring every morning and got pails of water. Then we went blueberry picking for blueberry pancakes. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, my mom sent me and my brother up north, and when my grandparents brought me back, my family had moved. When my mom we lived on the north end of Flint for years, and if you live in Flint, you know what the north end is like. And it's worse now, but my stepfather was black, or I should say my mother's boyfriend at the time. So anyway, my so they moved into a white neighborhood, a dump of a house. We had a slumlord. And the reason they moved without me is I remember one night I assumed they had been drinking and fighting, and my brothers were in bed, and I don't know why. I don't remember the circumstances, but I do remember standing in the kitchen, and mind you, I'm 11, and I'm busty, and I had just started getting my period, and my boobs had started growing. Well, he come up behind me, and I can hear my mom yelling in the basement, but don't know what she's saying. And he came up behind me and put his hands around me and grabbed my breast. Now, I must have been smart enough, even at 11, to know it was, I thought it more ridiculous. And then I heard my mom yelling, and she said, "Fuck you, Christina." And I think she did that out of jealousy, not really against me. And then now when I think back on it, maybe those were two different things. She might have been saying F you, something, something, F you, and then calling out my name. So anyway, I stepped away from him. There was nothing after that. There was one other incident where I'm pretty sure he had my mom call me down in the basement, and we had a shower in the basement, but it was just an open area on top of a drain. And he was showering, so of course he was totally naked. It's funny. He was so soaked up. I didn't even see anything, but I'm pretty sure he made her do it. And I really thought nothing of it. And then, just before my mom sent me up north, I remember her being in the bathtub. I was still the same age. This all happened pretty close together. She was in the bathtub, and she called me into the bathroom, and she told me to go down in the basement, which is where their bedroom was, and bring her the razor blades that were at the head of her bed. And I found this kind of an odd request, but you know, hey, she gotta shave her legs. It just felt strange to me. It felt off. So I did it. And then I don't know, I don't remember if she called my name. She had to have called my name. And I went into the bathroom, and she was laying in a tub full of bloody water. And me, in a panic, not thinking, I feel like I ran to the local store and used the payphone to call 911. But instead of going to a neighbor's, um, mind you, we were new in the neighborhood. Uh, it was an all-black neighborhood. My mom was a white woman with a black guy. That is, even though they were pretty good at welcoming us, I do remember being with the neighbor lady when the ambulance came and got my mom. Oh, shit. Could I have messed something up? I did. So anyway, she decided to leave him, and she moved out of fear for me. And I did not know this. When my grandparents brought me home and brought me to a totally different place, I was upset. I was really upset. Now, my mom, she did it quietly because she thought I would be upset being separated from her boyfriend. I was not in the least. Which now I look back on it, it just kind of seems like, yeah, I was not in the least upset about that. I was upset that they moved without saying anything to me. I would have not have put up a fuss. I was not attached to him like that. And looking back, I understand better about where and why those fears came, because in the evenings us kids were allowed to stay up and watch TV for a little bit. And my mom's boyfriend would lay on the couch, and I was like 10. And I would lay on the couch with him and watch TV. Well, my mom rarely left the room when that was going on, and I didn't realize that until recently. And I don't remember anything untowards happening. No touching. But then again, there was the pressing up against my little body, but yeah. So anyway, we moved into a new neighborhood, and we moved into a dump, and my mom had already been a partier, drinking and smoking and eating acid. Anyway, so yeah, we were very poor to the point of sometimes we didn't even have gas in the house. The gas would get shut off. We'd have to cook outside on a fire. There were a few times the furnace wasn't working. There were times when the electricity got cut off. Fortunately, the neighbor man was very kind about letting us hook up with the hose if we needed water. So for me, when we moved, Uh, the house we moved into, like I said, was a dump. We had foreign slumlords. I don't even remember where they were from. Uh, so yeah, we lived on a lot of canned tomato juice and flour pancakes. I started self-medicating when I was about 15. Oh, yeah, when I was 12, my mother's boyfriend returned, claiming that he had been saved, returned to God. He was a good Christian. So she took him back and they got married. Uh, they got married. He was bringing in some money. He and I didn't have any kind of real relationship. I quite frankly didn't like him. I was not emotionally attached. Uh, and at the time, my mom was an avid reader. Me too. Y'all want to watch me roll a cigarette? Uh, so I went from dog and horse books to dog and horse books to Stephen King. The Shining was my first horror novel. And then right around that time, my mom got back with her boyfriend. One day, my mom was gone. She was a Cub Scout, den mother. Um, oh, it sounds like somebody's here. Amazon. So, oh shit, I forgot. Oh, she was a den mother. So she went to a local campground with her Cub Scouts for outdoor events they were having. And one day, while she was gone, I was laying in my brother's bed reading, because his room was downstairs, mine was upstairs. I was laying on his bed reading a horror novel called Saints and Sinners. Excuse me, and I was about halfway through it. Well, he come in, my mom, well, by that time he's my stepdad. He comes in, says, "What are you reading?" I show him. Being the good Christian that he is, he snatches it out of my hand and throws it in the garbage and tells me I shouldn't be reading that stuff. So, me, being me, went and grabbed it back out of the trash. And he came back and seen that I had grabbed it out of the trash and that I was reading it again, and proceeds to take his belt off like he's gonna hit me. And honestly, quite frankly, I don't really remember if he did or not. I kind of feel like he did, but only once. I got up, went and got my book back, and went and got my brother, the oldest boy, and ran to my grandmother's house. My grandmother's house taking the railroad tracks, cutting through the woods, was maybe a mile and a half. So I got there. My grandma and grandpa were there. I explained what happened. My grandpa went and got his shotgun, stood it next to the door, and waited for my stepfather to show up. Which, yes, he did. So he showed up. My grandfather showed his weapon and told him, do not give up my property. You're not taking the child. And then they drove me where my mom was at the campground. And then, not long after that, my mom was gone. And I feel like it was right after that, and she was at the campground again. So my stepdad loaded up me and my 3 brothers. He had rented a camper from somewhere and took us to either Ohio, I think it was Ohio, or a religious convention. So basically he kidnapped us. He never told my mom. I remember being stopped at a stoplight about a mile, 2 miles maybe from the house, and thinking about jumping out of the vehicle. But I couldn't because I had my brothers. So we went to the convention. All I really remember is the music and him making me make macaroni and cheese for my brothers, which I'm pretty sure I had never done before. So yeah, after that happened, my mom left him. And then when I turned about 15, I started stealing my mom's weed, started refusing to go to school. And I will say that when I started 6th grade at the new school, I had a bloody nose first hour every single day for the first year. I kept my little bag with me with tissues, and I don't know if the teacher ever noticed. Mrs. X. She had to be in her 80s, I swear to God, teaching economics. And I don't know why I wasn't grasping. I remember she was mean. She was mean. And when I took the final, I failed. So I don't know why, but she contacted my mother and made arrangements for me to retake the test so that I could at least get a passing grade. She didn't need to do that. It was very kind of her. And Mrs. X, I'm sorry for every bad thing I said about you. So, there came a point where when I was about 15, I was having such social anxiety at school that I refused to go. Um, my mom considered me unmanageable, which I kind of was. Girls are just so emotionally unstable at that age. So, she sent me to live with my aunt and my cousins in Montrose, hoping that they would provide a more stable environment, which is where I picked up cigarette smoking, drinking beer, partying, um, and it was because my aunt partied also. Her and my mother were more like sisters than cousins. Uh, so I went to live there, and I remember one day, some older kids down the street were friends with my cousins. Um, they were only older. She was only older by, I think, a year. Well, we all went down to their house to skip school. Well, my cousin's stepdad, his brother, happened to see us go down there and not get on the bus. So he came to the house to confront us. When there was a knock on the door, we all ran and hid. Now, I remember the oldest girl and her boyfriend, they hid under her bed. They were never found. I hid in this weird, scary passageway in the basement. I got found. So, yeah, I eventually went back to my mom. I was no longer going to school. She left my stepdad after he had kidnapped us and probably beat on her a few times. There were a few instances. And she already had a history of suicide attempts, and she had her own trauma. But she was a good mom. She was a great mom. She loved us immensely. She was very good at hiding her trauma, and she drank, like I said, smoked pot. By then, 15, 16. I had started drinking occasionally. I didn't drink much at first when I got back home from Montrose. But, so, okay. So, me. Drug history. So, started out drinking, smoking pot, eating acid, getting blackout hammered. And I had 3 brothers, so they all had guy friends. So most of the time, the guy friends were included. My friend was my mom. I had girlfriends on either side of me, but they didn't party because their parents wouldn't let them. My mom's thing was, at least she knows where we are if we're drinking. So, yep, started partying, fell in love with the boy down around the corner from me. His brothers partied also. He had 3 older brothers. So, yeah, he had 3 older brothers, so we kind of all just wound up partying and drinking all the time. I was no longer going to school. Um, it's funny, my brothers were, but I don't remember them doing like schoolwork, anything like that. I think I just was living in my own head at the time. Uh, it wasn't until my boyfriend's oldest brother and his longtime girlfriend introduced us to crack. And honestly, if I even try to think up to when that was, it had to be, wow, it had to be the mid 80s. Wow. Anyway, I did wind up going back to school. I tried adult ed. Um, Second class in. I went to adult ed. Second class in. They make us group up. And the project is you're on a ship. It's sinking. And I can't remember if it was 5 items. So I think it was 5 items. List 5 items you would grab to help you survive on the nearby island. And I swear to God, hair dryers, makeup, radios. In the meantime, I'm searching for rope, knives, life jackets, whatever I can to survive. And these girls are telling me in the group, before we even talk to the teacher about, we all have to go around and tell the things that we have. I I went in the bathroom. And I couldn't come out. It's funny because even at the time I was thinking, how can these girls be so stupid? What's going on? They're all gonna die. I will feast on their bodies. No, not really. But now that I think that could be a thing. So I was on my way to the next class. I started having a panic attack in the car. I couldn't get out of the car once I got to the school. So I went back home. I went to adult ed. And in the meantime, while all this is going on, we're doing crack, but it's only occasionally. And I mean, we continue to drink and party. So, oh God, Joe, I am not feeling well. Right on time. It's 10 to 11. Head rushes. I'm getting super hot, even though the window's open. Dizziness, akathisia. As long as my hands are busy, it's not. I can't say it's not too terrible. It's more tolerable. shoot, where was I? Okay. I eventually wound up going to adult ed, and at the time, there were provisions if you get a high enough score, you can not only get your GED, but if you earn enough credits through your score, you can also get your high school diploma. Now, when I started the program, I had told them that was my intention, and they told me that's just not going to happen. Well, fooled them, because besides math, which I had to take twice. Oh, excuse me. I aced all the other tests and scored in such a high percentile across the nation that I did earn both my GED and diploma. They since have gotten rid of that, at least here in Michigan. All you can get is your GED. You have to legit go back to school and earn credits in order to get your diploma. At least last I heard. So yeah, I did get, and then I started college. 4.0, made the dean's list, went out to dinner with the dean. There were times when I was even taken out in the hall by the teachers and told what a good job I had done and to pursue, and in the meantime, I'm still doing crack. I did work a few different jobs. I worked in a video store for a long period of time, but when the owner told me he was only going to give me 3 days off for my honeymoon, my wedding, and my honeymoon, I quit. Gave him my 2 weeks notice. So yeah. God, there was a whole crap load of stuff surrounding that whole married thing. Anyway, at the time, I was drinking too much, going out to the bar pretty regularly with my sister-in-law. So, my ex and I got so bad into crack, we wound up having to move out of our apartment and find someplace cheaper. And he pawned everything we owned. I'm pretty sure he did something with my wedding ring. He pawned a brand new vacuum cleaner. And then one day I was doing dishes, and he came home and loaded up the stereo and said he was going to pawn it. Now, mind you, music is important to me. I love my music. I try to listen to my music every day. I love all kinds of music. So yeah, that was kind of when, I guess for me, when I realized how bad things were. I mean, we were eating buttered noodles, selling food stamps, and then I got pregnant while we were there. And when I got pregnant, I quit cold turkey. Everything. We wound up leaving there I think we may have gotten kicked out. Living there and moving in with his parents. Now, his mom was not a fan of my family because she blamed us for the undoing of her son, even though she had 3 other boys that were doing drugs and partying and running the streets. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were good guys. They were sweethearts, good human beings, just blood. So we lived with her for a while. I had quit doing drugs, even though I did smoke pot. Honestly, if it hadn't have been for the pot, I would have never been able to eat. I couldn't keep anything down. I was so sick. But in the meantime, he was continuing to do drugs, coming home late from work, and I think even his mother began to see who he really was. Her and I surprisingly got pretty close, even though we had issues at a later date. So, let's see, I was pregnant. We found a place to live. His dad had a friend that owned a trailer park. So we moved into a mobile home park. I had the baby. He doing drugs. Wouldn't do jack for me, but the minute a friend called, he was out the door, and there was no telling when he would come home. And then, I mean, we weren't getting along. I was tired, and I was going to the bar all the time. He was more than happy to stay home with the baby, drink a couple beers, and fall asleep in front of the TV. Which was, all good. I was a terrible mother. God, I adored that child. But my drinking was affecting my behavior towards him in the mornings. When you're hung up, you don't want to deal with the crying baby, you just want to sleep. I mean, he got fed, his diaper got changed, I took care of him. I just was not the greatest mom at first. Actually, I probably still am not the greatest mom, but changed a lot. I probably should stop this video right here. So anyway, still in protracted withdrawal from the nortriptyline. And in my last video, I talked about taking 20 milligrams before bed. That's 2 10-milligram capsules. So, yesterday I mentioned trying a different tactic to try to help mitigate these withdrawals I seem to be getting about this time of day. It's almost 11 o'clock in the morning. So I took a 10 milligram last night, and then I took a 10 milligram this morning to see if that would help. The only thing is that I went from the Watson manufacturer of the nortriptyline to the Teva manufacturer, and I had problems the first time they did this, and I requested to go back on the Watson. I don't know if the Tiva is stronger or weaker, and that's why it's messing with me. So I'm going to do a couple days of this splitting the dose and see if that changes anything. My Klonopin needs to be refilled. I've already called my doctor about that. In fact, I called her yesterday and there's nothing at the pharmacy, but our pharmacy situation here in Michigan is kind of screwed because now we're down to like 2 major pharmacies. When Rite Aid closed, Walgreens wound up getting most of their customers, so they're always behind. Anyway, I got a dose left for tonight, and then if they don't refill that today, I'm going to be without tomorrow. So this is something I have to go through every month, every other month, because my insurance only allows it to be refilled so many days before I run out, especially with Klonopin. So I have to wait for the doctor to call it in, wait for Walgreens' computer to actually register it, and then I gotta wait for them to fill it. And usually by then, I am going into another form of withdrawal. Oh, that's my doctor.